We are live here in the Michigan Football Report. I am your host, James Yoder, here talking the latest stories and rumors around Jim Harbaugh, the Michigan football recruiting department, and other things. So we're going to start the show today, coming up in a few moments, talking the latest Jim Harbaugh rumors. But we've also got stories on a big-time update from a five-star offensive lineman. I think most of you guys who should know what I'm talking about if you watch this show frequently in the past. We've talked about this player a bunch in the last few months. Some news to start the show. We probably see some transfer portal news. Dan Villari, he's got a podcast. It's like called The Amazing Podcast or something like that with Alan Bowman, the other quarterback that transferred in from Texas Tech. He is heading out. He will no longer be a part of this program, going to seek greener pastures. Maybe he thinks there's playing time for him elsewhere. So best of luck to Dan Villari. He will no longer be a part of this program. Some recruiting news. Jayden Denegal, one of Michigan's two quarterback commits in this 2022 class, on campus a couple of days ago, last weekend, with his family, dropped him off, moved into his dorm, early enrollee, headed right after that down to San Antonio, got a last-minute kind of injury replacement invite, and he will be part of the U.S. Army All-American Bowl that's taking place on Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern on NBC. If you guys want to go ahead and watch that, I'm really interested in this. I'm actually going to tune in. I haven't really watched this bowl game the last few years. I kind of thought they've turned into too much like a Pro Bowl where there's very little hitting and not any real plays. But I'm interested to see his talent because I haven't seen enough film of him personally because he's been committed for such a long time. It was kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I'm going to keep an eye out for that one there. So check it out, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC. Before we dive into more stories, I'm going to ask you this question with the news and rumors around Jim Harbaugh. Keep his eye on the NFL. Michigan is a program that likes Michigan men, that likes to keep things stable. A lot of times we saw what happened when Rich Rodriguez kind of skewed in there 14 years ago. Who would be the better candidate or the best candidate out of these three guys on the screen? Michigan's offensive coordinator, Josh Gattis. If you think so, type JG. Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator, first year, one of the best DCs in the country, at least statistically and performance on the field, type MM. Or Michigan man himself, first year running backs coach, Mike Hart, type MH. And I'm not talking about in the future, folks. I'm talking about next week, 2 weeks from now, if Jim Harbaugh were to take his talents to the NFL and jump, leave Michigan after 7 seasons. We've got some news for you on the recruiting staff front, all right? So Courtney Morgan, who was just hired about 10 months ago to lead up Michigan's recruiting, he left to take the same job with Washington right after a couple weeks ago. And now there is another Michigan football staffer headed to Washington. Clearly, it's a relationship. It's kind of a pull-through thing. I'm actually surprised that Michigan doesn't have a clause in contracts that say, hey, you can't recruit our guys if you leave for another job. But Jerret McElwain has been with Michigan for a long time, was also with Alabama back before there. Yes, he's Jim McElwain's son. He was director of scouting for Michigan, just got a promotion back in March. He's heading out to take the lateral move to Washington as well. So 2 of Michigan's 5 kind of all-in full-time recruiting staff has departed in the last 2 weeks for the Washington Huskies. And, producer in my ear, rumor alert, it might not be the last one because Christina DeRuyter, how you pronounce her name, you guys remember her. We talked about her a lot back in March when she was hired. Being the person who covers on-campus and game day recruiting. So when recruits come for official visits, we come for unofficial visits. Anybody's on campus, she is trying to make it an A-plus experience from the time they step on campus, the time they leave their house to the time they get back, a driveway-to-driveway experience. Rumor out there, unconfirmed at this point, but I think I'm kind of leaning toward it being true, is that she is being recruited and potentially is interviewing as early as this week, today or tomorrow, whether it's in person or over the phone, Zoom, I'm not sure, with Washington as well. So Michigan could potentially lose 60%, 3 of the 5 of their full-time recruiting members. They made a hire just in the past couple weeks as well. So they've added 1 person, but might be losing 3. Washington, though? I mean, Washington? Really? Washington? I mean, this is a program that was big time 30 years ago, right? They won a national title in 1991. They competed for one late 90s, early 2000s. But Washington has been really relevant in college football. One out of every 2 or 3 of the last 20 seasons. They went to the CFP in 2015, and that was a nice little performance. They got their butt kicked. But what are we doing with Washington? I'm not really sure what makes that appealing to DeRuyter or to Jerret McElwain to take lateral moves, and maybe they get a little more money, but we're not talking about a ton more. So I don't know what the allure is. Hell, maybe Jim Harbaugh, which has happened with Harbaugh a lot in the past, maybe kind of pushed him out the door. He wanted to make different hires and was like, hey, I'm going to give you a month. Go look for other opportunities. I'll give you a nice letter of recommendation, but you're not coming back to us next year, so let's make it a nice, smooth transition. Don't make it look like you got fired. I don't know if that's happened here, but Jim Harbaugh has been known to do that in the past. What I've been known to do in the past, folks, is make straight cash, homie, betting on football, college football, NFL. I lost some money on Michigan versus Georgia, but we all lost a little bit in that game. But you can win and take advantage of our sportsbook offer with our partner BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/go blue. Use the promo code GoBlue. 125% deposit bonus. Put some money on the Alabama-Georgia game on Monday. Put some money on these NFL Week 18 games this weekend. Saturday, there's a couple games. A bunch of games on Sunday, leading up to Sunday Night Football with the Chargers and Raiders. Or bet on the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl, March Madness. But get going. We don't know how long the 125% deposit bonus will last. Chatsports.com/go blue. Use that promo code GoBlue for BetUS. Let's talk about what Michigan potentially should and could do. Jim Harbaugh should and could do with the recruiting department. If you saw a video I put out about 8 months ago, I said, hey, here's how Michigan could win the Big Ten and decimate the Ohio State football program. It was basically, hey, go get their best coaches, their best behind-the-scenes folks. And with Michigan's recruiting department kind of coming apart at the seams, looking for other jobs, interviewing elsewhere, going to Washington, I think now is the time to go big or go home for Coach Jim Harbaugh when it comes to recruiting. And that starts with this guy right here, Mark Pantoni. I think he's the best in the business at both identifying talent and managing a group of coaches and a group of recruiting personnel to go seek the best players regardless of geography. Texas, Florida. Hell, they got 2 5-stars who were ranked in the top 10 players in the country from the state of Washington, Ohio State did, in this last recruiting class. He's been with Ohio State for a decade. Right? He's a young guy. I don't think he's even turned 40 years old yet. And he was with Urban Meyer at Florida as an undergrad, kind of took over an assistant recruiting job. And then by the time he was like 27 years old, he was running Florida's recruiting department for a national championship program before, he had even gotten close to his 30th birthday. Went 1 year under, who was the coach after Urban Meyer? I'm just forgetting at this point. You guys remember? No, at Florida. Not McElwain, the South Carolina guy. You guys know. Defensive coordinator, Georgia now, I think. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. Texas. Yes, you guys know what I'm talking about. Worked for him 1 year and then went to Ohio State. Will Muschamp. That's your job, Peterson. When I say something, you give me the right answer fast. It takes 3 seconds. Who was coach after Urban Meyer? All right? Worked there and then went to Ohio State the last 10 years. He is wildly underpaid. $225,000. That seems like some pretty good money. But when it comes to other schools, you think about what Alabama makes. And by the way, this is all publicly available information for public universities. You can go on their websites, look up their staff, and see what the salaries are. Michigan could get him for probably $400,000. They got to make him an offer he can't refuse. A contract, $400,000, $500,000. Hell, throw him $1 million. You will decimate Ohio State and Ryan Day's kind of latching on to Urban Meyer's success. And then you will have the best recruiting guy in the game, both from an organization perspective and a talent, scouting perspective. And so what I want you guys to do, join me in this endeavor. I've told Mark personally himself, I've said it directly to him, I wish you would come to Michigan. If you're interested at all, I'll go out and do everything I can to raise money from boosters to get you to come to Michigan. We'll pay you $2 million a year. So go to his Twitter account right now. I just went and did it a little bit before we went on the show. Just type "come to Michigan." He's got a pinned tweet from like 5 or 6 years ago. We'll toss it up on screen here. It's this photo, right? So it's Zeke Elliott, and so like 3 or 4. I think it's Michael Thomas maybe on their recruiting trips in like 2012. So we're not talking about those players in there, but I didn't want you guys to get lost. Let's just put it all in the same tweet. So go to his account. Either right now or if you want to do it later, that's fine too. At Mark Pantoni. I'm going to go ahead and follow. If I see anybody in that pinned tweet, if you say, come to Michigan, I'll go and follow you as well back if I haven't yet already. But show him some love, right? I believe he is underpaid. He knows he's underpaid, right? He knows what other guys are making around the country, and Ohio State has not shown him the love. So Ohio State did a couple years ago with Al Washington and Greg Madison. Maybe it's time for Michigan to get a little revenge and steal, I think, the most valuable member of Ohio State's entire football program, and that includes head coach Ryan Day or anybody else. So go ahead, type "come to Michigan" on Mark Pantoni's most recent tweet. Let's talk some more on the big story around this program over the last 24 to 48 hours. It is Jim Harbaugh interested in the NFL. The Athletic says, "I'd bet on it," right? Or whatever that Bruce Feldman said. Very clickbaity headline. I didn't believe it. I didn't think that there was much behind it. That kind of just is the every year except for last year. Harbaugh the NFL. Harbaugh the NFL. Get some page views. They make a little money. But maybe this one has some legs. Yesterday on Pardon the Interruption, you guys know the show, ESPN, Mike Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser. Wilbon said, Harbaugh to the NFL, he said, "I'd bet on it," and then said a bunch of other things on there. But he talked about some of the things I have. Hey, he's got a big-time, long-time relationship with the Raiders. He was close to Al Davis. Is very close to his son, Mark Davis. He was beloved in Chicago. Is still beloved in Chicago. 25, 30 years after he was playing here, he's beloved in Chicago. He made a call for him to come, that he'd bet on Harbaugh to the NFL. If he was putting money on it, he thinks it's going to happen. He thinks this is the right time. Beat Ohio State, won the Big Ten. Now it's time to take another shot at the Super Bowl. He might bet on it, folks, all right? I wouldn't bet on it. I would not bet on it. I don't think it's good odds if you're putting, 50-50 that Jim Harbaugh is going to the NFL. But at this point, I can't dismiss it anymore, right? Why can't I dismiss it? Because Jim Harbaugh is not dismissing it. In the past, it's been at least 3 or 4 times since he's been the coach, there have been this fever pitch of media focus around, will Harbaugh go to the NFL? Harbaugh interested in this job. Harbaugh interested in that job. And almost every time, he's come out within a matter of days and debunked it. He's just said it's our enemies spreading rumors to hurt us in recruiting, hurt us here, and he's pushed blame on people just wanting to damage the Michigan football program, damage his ability to recruit, damage his ability to hold on to players, get guys to know that he's in for the long term. But he hasn't done that. And usually the water-carrying, jock-sniffing local media like Webster and the Blog Boys, they will do whatever they can to have their hero Jim Harbaugh, read their article, and they say, this is not true at all. But none of them have done it either, right? So that leads me to believe that they're not getting word from the athletic department, hey, here's the story you should write today, like so often happens in the past. I'm not dismissing it at this time, but we're going to talk about what Michigan needs to do to keep Jim Harbaugh here in a second. But I asked this question a little bit ago. Where will Harbaugh coach next year? Type M, type R, type B. If you think it's a choice other than one of those on the screen, go ahead and maybe just write the team in: New York Giants, Denver Broncos, hell, San Francisco 49ers. You never know. There's some rumors circulating around the Chat Sports office today that could be in the works. I'm not sure who started that one, but it's wild to think about. All right, what would Jim Harbaugh need from me reading the tea leaves and then talking to a few people, not necessarily on the Michigan side, but on the agent side, people who are kind of in the name, image, and likeness game, NFL coaching agencies and stuff like that. These are the 6 points that I believe if Michigan is not able to fulfill what Jim Harbaugh is looking for, he will strongly consider moving on to the NFL. With name, image, and likeness and transfer portal, I'm bucking them into one area, and that is aggressive at name, image, and likeness program. Michigan has already fallen behind. Ohio State's entire starting offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, backup quarterback had brand new $60,000 and $70,000 SUVs and Chargers and pickup trucks this year. And guys were getting big time deals. Alabama's quarterback, $1 million before he ever started a game this year is what Nick Saban said. Michigan has almost none of that. We're talking about the thousands or small tens of thousands. And Michigan really needs to push forward. Looser admissions on transfers. Jim Harbaugh is clearly not happy that Michigan has not been able to take advantage of guys transferring into this program from other programs. And now with there's not being the requirement to sit out a year, it's more important than ever. Ohio State just got a big-time starter in their secondary from Oklahoma State to transfer over. Alabama has just been getting superstar players. Eli Ricks from LSU transferring over to Alabama. Michigan has gotten a fifth-year guy who has had to do a grad transfer. Michigan needs to be able to take guys first and second years who can take all of their academic transcripts over to Michigan. And then less red tape overall from the athletic department. I'm talking about transfers. I'm talking about name, image, and likeness. Michigan's got to go through this whole long, drawn-out process to get name, image, and likeness deals approved. How about compensation staff? They did give him a long-term deal, rework the one they had last year, making $4 million a year, at least get up into the level of the Michigan State coach, the Penn State coach, $8 million, $9 million, $10 million a year, although I don't think Harbaugh is necessarily in it for the money right now. a bigger assistant coach salary pool, right? Make sure Josh Gass, if he wants to move on, isn't moving on because of money. Mike McDonald might want to go back to the NFL as a D coordinator. Mike Hart, et cetera, et cetera. I think Michigan really likes this staff. And then a larger budget for support staff. Take that recruiting department, take it from 5 people to 8 people. Take other positions where Michigan's got 2 people, give them 4 people, right? Social media, et cetera, et cetera. Michigan was one of the leaders when Harbaugh came on in that aspect of it. In the last few years, they've definitely fallen behind schools like LSU, Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, et cetera, the bigger schools there. So those are the 6 points I think Michigan needs to come up with a plan to keep Jim Harbaugh, and he will remain as their coach. But speaking of name, image, and likeness, and it's a math, Michigan makes about $9 million estimated every home game in ticket sales alone. Ticket sales alone. Average 110,000 people, 80, 90, sometimes 100, 120 for Ohio State price per ticket. And then you spend money on concessions, parking, tailgating, flying, driving. The average at Michigan football Saturday, probably just in those things, not even counting hotels and things like that, we're talking about $25 to $30 million per Saturday. I think Michigan can easily, with just the fans, put together a program where people can donate to start having a name, image, likeness fund that's not necessarily affiliated with the school. So question to you guys, would you donate, if possible, $100 a year to a Michigan name, image, and likeness fund? I want to know from you guys. Type Y for yes, type N for no. I put 1,000 in, right? The Yoder family trust already puts in like $2,500 a year to keep these obnoxious season tickets. So what's another 100, right? And if 100,000 people did $100, right, that's $10 million. That's plenty of money to give every guy, $100,000. So let's see what you guys think. Type Y for yes, type N for no. By typing Y, you're opting in, and we are going into your computer right now and getting all your credit card information, just so you know, and you'll see that charge on your card here in a matter of moments. Just kidding. All right, these next 2 weeks, folks, they will determine, in my opinion, the next 10 years of Michigan football. We've heard a lot. Michigan's putting something together on name, image, likeness. They're putting something together. It's going to be great when it comes out. Great when it's come out. It's been 6 months since name, image, likeness has been legal. It's been a year and a half since it's been known, and Michigan has yet to do really anything to support their players. And several basketball players have come out and said, hey, NIL is just a disaster compared to what I'm hearing guys are getting in other schools. Michigan needs to move and move fast to keep Jim Harbaugh, keep the staff, and be able to compete for transfers, name, image, likeness. And if they don't, Jim Harbaugh might be onto the NFL, and Michigan could be scrambling to get maybe a second-rate coach. Josh Connolly, 5-star offensive lineman out of Seattle. You've heard me talk about him a lot. Visited for the Washington game. Michigan went out and visited him in Seattle over the summer. Don't expect a decision from him soon because although he named a final 6 teams last week, he is taking official visits, 3 more official visits after his basketball season. He's playing in the Army All-American game on Saturday, 1 o'clock Eastern on NBC, but don't expect him to commit when signing day comes up the first Wednesday of February. Here's the quote he had down at the Army All-American game. I'll decide probably sometime around March. I haven't been able to take my officials. The next 3 weekends in January for basketball are bowl games and basketball tournaments, so I won't be able to take any officials. And February is a dead period where you could not be on campus after signing day for about 3 weeks. So he's going to have to take official visits, sounds like in March. So he may not commit until late March or early April. I've said in the past few weeks, I think it's a 75% chance that Michigan lands him in their class. That's waning back, right? If he's pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off, what we've seen in the past is the longer guys push it off, typically it's more likely that they stay closer to home. So I'm guessing that Josh Connolly may not end up in Michigan, but we'll hope for the best as we get more information on this big-time offensive line prospect. We will certainly bring you that news.